outcome of the work. It's how we see the day that will determine that day for some child. And I also happen to believe that in our world there is no place for good. See, Oakland Unified cannot be a good district. You must be a great district, because that's what your kids deserve, great. And what will bring them there is the attitude you bring with you. And when you choose great, and when you stand in front of them with a sense of belief, and that choice so obvious, it is amazing what will happen with your kids. So how y'all doing today?
Great!
I'm liking this. Yeah, this is going to be fun. You know, I came in this morning, and I'll apologize if I get a little distracted. Exactly 24 hours ago right now, I was standing in Norfolk, Virginia, hugging my son goodbye. I helped him move cross country. He's in the Navy, and in 5 weeks he's going to be in Afghanistan. And no, don't go there. He's going because he chose to. I'll go, you go, thank you, okay? Because there's a whole world of young men and women just like him who are doing that for us. And you see, I at one point in time, I had a conversation with him, and I said, you know, I just want to thank you for your service, son. I just really appreciate that. And there's times I really wish that I had chosen to serve my country. And he looked at me, and he got a perplexed look on his face. He said, Dad, what are you talking about? You've served your country 37 years. See, you lead a school district. You're the future of our country. I'm the security of our country. That's our work, ladies and gentlemen. See, I used to say, well, we're in the business of building dreams and paving the pathway to futures. No, that's not it. We're in the business of saving lives. And that's what it comes down to. And I understand the challenges you face. In Oakland, you may face that challenge more than in many, if not most, communities. But you are the warriors in this community who will save those lives. You are the ones who will stand and build belief. You are the ones who will bring great to the world of every child. I believe in you. That's why I hugged my son goodbye yesterday and journeyed to be here with you. So we're going to spend some time together. We're going to have a conversation around, I sure wish I could see the presenter tools. I'm sorry. You see, I never used the same presentation twice, and I haven't seen this one since last Saturday when I left, and we got in this one. That's the one. We're gonna have a conversation around some things I believe in deeply. It looks a lot the same to you, but it doesn't look anything like that up here right now. I'm gonna share our journey in Sanger and some things that I've found to be, I think, universal truths about the work we do. And I may challenge some of you, and hopefully I'll inspire some of you a little bit. We're ready to embark on another year. Opportunity waits. When do your kids come back? Oh, you got a while. I get mine Thursday. Whew, here we go. But I think it's important that as we begin this conversation, we ask a question. We're a Cal Foundation grantee, and I know Cal does work in Oakland, the Oakland community as well. And a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to share a conversation with some friends that are also involved in work that Cal funds. And Leslie Modine, who's up in the Napa area, posed this question in the conversation, and it still continues to resonate with me, because as we have a conversation about the role of leadership as we embark on this next year, I think it's important that you ask this question of yourself. How are you playing? Are you not playing? Are you just playing? Are you playing not to lose? Or are you playing to win? And you see, the difference between those last two questions is a stark reality. And in fact, it is maybe the most important differentiation that we need to bring to the work. Let me show you why that's important.
What we all want in life is a shot. But what we do with it, that's the story we all want to tell.
You know, I've coached for 25 years, and I've never experienced that, you know, the emotional high of what happened.
What happened for Jason McElwain, or J-Mac as his friends call him, is about more than a shot. Diagnosed with autism at 2 years old, now identified as highly functioning, he's never considered himself different or separate, especially when it comes to sports.
Sports has always been, how could I say, his equalizer. He's just like any of the other kids out there.
It's not really a big deal at all. I'm just normal like other people. That's the way I am.
At 5'6", J-Mac didn't make the junior varsity basketball team at his high school, Greece Athena, near Rochester, New York. Instead, he became team manager, a role he now has for the varsity as a senior. In the last 3 years, in his white shirt and black tie, he's missed only one game.
During practice, I set up the clock and get the water in games and be enthusiastic.
As this season was wrapping up, Coach Johnson approached Jason with an idea about the Trojans' final home game of the season.
I said, you know, I'm really going to look to try to get you in the game, but remember, I can't promise you that. And he goes, okay, Coach.
February 15th, Greece Athena against Spencerport, senior night. With word out that Jason might play, the student section printed signs of J-Mac's face, just in case. And with 4:19 left in the game, with the Trojans up by 20, Coach called down to the end of the bench for number 52.
I just kind of turned and pointed at him, and he almost ran right on the court. He was so excited.
Hey, Jay, you got to check in. So he hits the buzzer, and he doesn't go anywhere. It's like, now you go on the court. You know, he was so caught up in the moment.
He came into the game, they all stood up and they put the signs, the pictures of him up, and I got really emotional. And I sat down and started to cry.
With 3:46 left, Jason got the ball.
When he missed that first three, I was like, oh, and then it airball, and I was like, man, I really just want to see him score one time.
I put my head in my hands, I go, dear God, please, just get him a basket.
Then, with 3:12 left, another chance.
That third trip down the court. Imagine.
As soon as I started hitting my first shot, I just kept shooting, and I was just hot as a pistol.
Shot after shot after shot kept going in.
The basket was like this big, huge bucket, and I was shooting them like they were free throws. It was just a big, huge bucket that's like huge.
And I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? He has more points than me, so he's got bragging rights over me.
He was unstoppable for that moment in time. He was unstoppable.
He comes down the court right at the end with like 3 seconds left, and he hits this one that's, probably like an NBA three. As soon as the gun ended, they stormed the court. I couldn't, I just couldn't dream anything like that.
It felt like we won a championship. Everyone's just so happy for me.
In that 4 minutes, 19 seconds, Jason was 7 for 13, 6 of 10 from three-point range, 20 points in all. In his first and only varsity basketball game, J-Mac was the high scorer.
Truly the most incredible moment I've ever had in coaching. I was so touched, and it was just so special to me that a young man, his dream came true, and that I could help that. It was awesome.
What we all want in life is a shot. J-Mac took his, and now it's a story we can all tell.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I watched that video, and I still can't finish it with a dry eye. But you see, maybe the thing that tugs at my heart the most is what the narrator said at the end. What we all want in life is a shot. But I think about the world we're about to enter again, and how many kids will come to us that we've failed to even get in the game yet. And every one of them needs a shot. See, that's our job. Our job is to guarantee not only does every child get the shot, but to do that, we get them in the game. Every child. And that's a role of leadership. That's a function of leadership in our sites. And it starts with a belief. We got to believe in every child. No matter where they come from, no matter what they bring to us, they don't lack potential. And we've got to remind ourselves of that. And so defining winning is really about every child in the game. And we need to remind ourselves too of why it is we do what we do. You see, when those kids show up, what just happened is every family in this community sent you their most precious possession. They're sending us their kids. And do you understand the gift that they're giving to us by entrusting us with the task of paving that pathway to their future? Now see, I'll admit, those 3 are mine. Those are 3 of my 4 grandkids. Number 4 got here on the 16th of July at 16:16 in the afternoon. I should have played the lotto that day. You see, about 8 years ago, my daughter and son-in-law paid me the highest compliment I've been paid in my career. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we sat down, and my daughter looked at me and she said, "Dad, I've been listening to you talk about the work in Sanger, and you believe so strongly in your schools, and you're so passionate about what you're doing. We want our kids to go to your schools." They didn't have kids. They bought a house in Sanger, and I moved my daughter home to 1620 Holt with Derek, that devastatingly handsome young man on the end that looks a lot like his grandfather. We moved him home from St. Agnes Hospital, and he finished first grade in Sanger Unified this year. And Ryan, yeah, that's a good-looking boy too. He's starting kindergarten on Thursday. And Aubrey, she's starting preschool, and Lord help that teacher. Yeah, you know, we all get something like that, don't we? But you see, when I look at my grandkids, I'm reminded, I saw this picture, and the first thing I thought when my daughter sent it to me was, I didn't even know Derek was a Texas fan. And then I looked again, and I was reminded of the fact that no, when Elisa began working with Derek as he developed his verbal skills, she taught him sign language at the same time. And he still instinctively says, "I love you." That's just who he is. And that realization reminded me of something one of my young principals said. It was his first year, and he's meeting early on in that year with his staff, and he's talking about the work ahead. And he said, "You know, I've come to understand one thing that we fail to recognize sometimes is this: every child has their story, and sometimes it's the story that gets in the way of learning. And we have to know our kids well enough that we know their story, and we can respond to it." And that was brought home in my former job. I grew up professionally in a little single school country school district out in West Fresno County. It was 44 square miles of farmland. It was a K-8 school district. We had 440 kids. We didn't have a grocery store in our district boundaries. So you can imagine the function of the school. We were the community center. And it was summer, and I had summer school going, and one of my former students had actually come back to teach summer school for me. She'd just gotten her credential, and I don't know, for some reason I didn't have a lot of teachers that really wanted to spend their summer with the kid that had to be there. And so I said, "Janet, yeah, here's an opportunity. Come teach summer school for me. I'll work with you." And she was struggling a little bit, and we're meeting and going over the day, and I realized she was totally disengaged. I mean, she's looking right past me out the door. And I turned around, and there standing in the doorway was a bum. I thought, how in the world did this vagrant get on my campus, and what's he doing here? And I was about to reassure her, and it dawned on me, and I looked again and realized, no, that's Lee. That was one of my kids from my first class in 1976. Lee, is that you? Yeah, Mr. J, it's me. Man, I haven't seen you in a long time. Come on, let's go to my office and talk. So we sat down, and I said, "Lee, it's been forever, man. It's been, I don't know, 14, 15 years since I've seen you. What have you been doing?" There was a long pause. He said, "Mr. Johnson, I've been in prison." You've been in prison. Yeah, I just spent 14 years in prison, Mr. Johnson. I was stunned. And he went on, he said, you know, I turned 34 in prison. I think that may have been the worst day of my life. That birthday, I never even left my cell. I just stayed on my bunk and I just thought all day long. I thought about the mistakes I made. I thought about the fact I got a 14-year-old son I've never met. And somewhere in the middle of the afternoon, I thought about you and that year we spent together when you were my 6th grade teacher. And I thought about all the times you told me, Lee, you can be anything you set your mind to. Lee, it's the choices you make. Lee, it's the path you choose to walk. Let us help you. So I didn't listen real good, Mr. Johnson. So then I went on to high school, and I don't know how you knew it, but I remember there were times I stepped in it, and you showed up on that high school, and you chewed my butt. I couldn't believe how you got in my dish, let alone how you even knew I was in trouble again. I said, you know, that's when I realized, Mr. Johnson, you did that because you loved me, didn't you? Yeah, Lee, you're one of my kids. I loved you. So, well, Mr. Johnson, I got out of prison yesterday. You're the first person I came back to see. I just wanted to tell you thank you for loving me. That meant an awful lot to me. It took me a minute, just like it is now. I asked him, Lee, did you learn anything in prison? And you heard Tony. He looked at me and he said, oh yeah, Mr. J, you see, it's real simple. The main thing is you got to keep the main thing the main thing. And my first response was, oh, Lee. And then I realized, no, that's actually a very profound statement. And to a degree, it really describes some of the issues that we have in public education. We failed to keep the main thing the main thing. In our business, there's only one thing. That's learning. You see, it's student learning. But not only is it student learning, it's the learning of adults as well. It's our determination that we will come to work today better than we were yesterday. And today sets the stage for tomorrow. You see, it's about learning. That is the main thing. Well, for those of you that don't know Sanger, I'll just give you a real quick update. If you want to know where we are, we're that way. We're just outside of Fresno in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley, where it was 111 degrees yesterday. And the power went out. Yeah, it's hot back home right now. My wife was more than happy to pick me up at the airport at 10 o'clock last night and drive with me up here so she can be out of that for part of today. But we are about 11,000 kids. We cover about 185 square miles. As you can imagine, we're predominantly rural. We have 82% minority enrollment. The majority of them are of Hispanic extraction. But we have a growing African American population. We have a growing Southeast Asian population. We have a growing Punjabi. We actually speak 19 languages, which isn't bad considering the Bay Area. I know you guys may have challenges more than that. San Francisco, boy, they get whacked when it comes to second languages. But for us, that's enough challenges, opportunities, if you would. 76% of our kids qualify for free and reduced lunch. 24% of our kids are English language learners. But 49% of our parents don't speak English as a primary language. Now, if you look at that, you'll see there's a discrepant event. If half of our kids are coming to us from homes where English is not the primary language spoken, and only 1 in 4 of them is designated as English language learner, then something's going on in our classrooms. And we are pushing kids through to fluency at rapid levels. 28% of our parents didn't graduate from high school. Another 24% graduated but never attended college. And that statistic is deceiving as well, because you know those parent surveys you send out at the start of the year and it says college graduate. Well, if they went to Lyle Beauty College, they checked the box college graduate. And so I would suggest that we're probably closer to 60% of our parents that never really attended college. So we mirror the demographics of the San Joaquin Valley. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, that Congress did a study a couple years ago on parent education and poverty. And Jim Costa's 20th Congressional District, which we are in, fell 435th out of 435 congressional districts in America. Highest level of poverty, lowest level of parent education in this country. See, that's the heart of the San Joaquin Valley. And a lot of people, when you talk about that need, they'll say, oh, well, you know, it's Appalachia. That's where the poverty and the parent education, that's the worst. Or it's the, you know, it's the urban core of some cities that have really struggled. No, it's the heart of California. And you share demographics that are common to that in many ways. You see, these are the children of our state. And these are the children that we must serve. Now, we've been on an interesting journey. I came to Sanger in 1999 as Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. And about a year and a half after I got to the district, our superintendent was invited by the board to seek other options with her life. And some of you chuckle because you've lived through that in this district for a long time. And by the way, it's been a long time since you've had a superintendent stand up in front of you for a 4th consecutive year. And you need to know Tony Smith's one of my heroes. I don't know too many superintendents that are as passionate about the place they work and the community they serve as that man right there. He believes in every one of you. You should have heard what he was saying about you while I was trying to eat breakfast. He never has respected my private space, but that's okay. But you see, about a year and a half after I got to the district, like I said, we found ourselves in an interesting situation. And the board, we'd had 6 superintendents in 8 years, so they understood the turnover. And they invited the 3 assistant superintendents in and said, you know, we've been such a meat grinder on leadership here. We'd like you guys to lead this district in a collaborative fashion for a short period of time while we just figure out what we're going to do. And that ended up being a 2.5-year short period of time. So for 2.5 years, we didn't have a superintendent. Now, I don't want anybody in here to get an idea that might be a good thing for Oakland. But you see, in our case, it was a very good thing because for 2.5 years, when something wasn't working, nobody knew who to blame. And so what happened was it forced us to sit down and to begin to work to reestablish trust. And if you look at an organization in distress, you're going to find that at the heart of that, most often, is a violation of trust. And we had to build relationships. And so we began that. And 2.5 years later, then I was asked to serve as superintendent, and I've been doing that. I think it's been 95 years now. It's been a heck of a journey. But fast forward to 2004, 2005, I had a brand new assistant superintendent. I hired him to do HR, and then my curriculum guy said he's retiring, and I couldn't find anybody that I believed in deeply enough to take that job. So I sat down with Rich and I said, have I got a deal for you? How'd you like to do HR and curriculum and instruction? What do you think he said? He'd been there 3 months. I'd love to. I told him I'd help him. Then a couple months later, he calls across, you know, our intercom system is 2 open doors in a hallway. Hey, Mark, we got trouble. What do you mean? Well, we just got a letter from the state. We're in PI. What? What's that? Yeah, you know. So we sat down, we began to take a look at ourselves. We were one of the first 98 districts in California to fall in program improvement status. We were the drum majors in that parade. And that's not the place you want to find yourself. And we begin to ask the question, why? You see, unfortunately, in too many places where that label descended upon them, their response was, yeah, well, what do you expect? I mean, we're working pretty hard, but look at who we're working with. Well, we're doing okay. And in our case, we took an entirely different look. We asked, well, what have we missed? And we realized we were an organization in disarray. We didn't understand what standards-driven education was. We had no idea. We had no way to measure student growth over time. We had no real-time data to answer the question, did learning occur today? We're relying on the test scores of last year. And there's only so many times you can kick that horse. It's not going to run any faster. It's done. That race is over. Our API as a district was $5.99 at the time. We were struggling. I had schools, we were in the bottom 10% in terms of student achievement in the district. I had schools in the bottom 2%. Now, if you take a look at where we went and where we are now, and that's as of 2010, that's a compressed time frame. You can see that we made some remarkable growth. We exited PI in 2 years. Every school that was in PI exited PI. I had a school that went from PI 4 to State Distinguished School in 3 years. Since that time, I've had 17 schools designated as State Distinguished School. I've had 17 schools designated as Title I Academic Achieving Schools. Had 3 National Blue Ribbon Schools. Our middle school is National Middle School to Watch. Our high schools had bronze level recognition in U.S. News and World Report. It's one of the best high schools in the country, 3 times. You see, we're still 82% minority, and we're still 76% poverty, and we're still 24% EL. Here's another look at where we were. Go back to 2002 and take a look at our percent proficient or advanced, and you can see where our problem was. It was our EL learners. If you look down, Jefferson Elementary is a prime example. You see, while we're 24% across the district, some of our sites are as high as 60%. And Jefferson's one of those sites. It's 450 kids. It's 100% poverty. It's 99% minority. 60% English language learners. And in 2002, we had 3.3% of the kids at that school who were English language learners that were proficient or advanced in English language arts. Now, if you do the math, 60% of 450 is about 260, 270 English language learners at that school, and 3.3%, that's 7 kids. That's all we had gotten to the point of proficiency. You see, that's negligence to the point of criminal behavior on the part of the adults. And that was the realization we came to. It's not them, it's us. We have failed them. 4 years ago, Kathy Padilla sat down with me at the start of the year. Kathy's the principal at Jefferson Elementary. She said, Mark, my goal for this year, we're going to have an API of 800 and we're going to be a State Distinguished School this year. Now, her first calculated API was 389. Her first issued was 419. And for her to say, we're going to crack 800 and we're going to be a State Distinguished School, do you know what a journey of improvement that would mark? I looked at her and I said, Kathy, if you can do that this year, you can shave my head. I used to have really nice hair. They shaved my head in front of 450 kids. And 2 weeks later, I had a giant aha moment because I stopped at a grocery store on the edge of town on my way home. And one of the kids from Jefferson was there with his mom, and he saw me. And he got this big smile on his face. And he grabs his mom's arm and he goes, Mom, that's Mr. Johnson. He's the superintendent. He shaved his head because I'm smart. Now, you see, ladies and gentlemen, when we get a child at that point, we didn't turn a corner. We didn't win a battle. We won the war. Because he believes in himself. He understands, I have potential. And I'm going to reach it. And that's the journey we've been on. And that's a function of leadership. And that's what we've done. And how do we move that fast? It really was about developing an organization-wide focus. You see, it would have been easy for me to say, well, we have 6 schools in PI. We're going to work on those schools. But what we said is, we have 11,000 kids. We're going to fix it for every one of them. And we're going to do what is necessary to get that done. As an organization, it is all of us. And we began that journey. We built structures. We worked on our culture. Because you see, organizational culture, it's either the grease on your skids or it's the bump in your road. It's who we see ourselves as that determines whether we move together or we stand still. And we had no choice but move. and working on culture has been a 13-year journey for me. We really focused on how we deliver instruction too, because that's the primary point of entry. High quality initial instruction is the best support we can provide. We must guarantee for every child, and as leaders, you must be an expert in the delivery of instruction as well. You must be able to sit down and have reflective conversations with your teachers around high quality instruction. You must be able to coach them up. That's the job, that's the work, and that's the work we began on. And see, we took a little different look at things in terms of improving our systems than some may. Watch this and see if it reminds you of how some organizations have responded.
That's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? Help! I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's nothing else left to do. That's it.
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
Life is good when I see the sunlight in the morning. Lying in my bed, it's Monday 10 a.m. Walk across the room and open up the window. Feel the fresh air and the sunlight in my face. Life
You see, that reminds me of the response of some organizations. So why do we get on an escalator in the first place? To get us to the next level. And you see, what they fail to realize is because the escalator quit moving doesn't mean they have to. And yet I've worked with some folk who said, you know, some things are kind of broken. We're just going to wait for somebody to come fix us. And what I've come to realize is this. Every organization is perfectly aligned for the results it gets. You see, it's not about somebody else fixing us. It's about us fixing us. It's about us asking, how do we together, collaboratively and collectively, build the organization we need to become? How do we build leadership at all levels? How do we build teacher leaders, the foundation of the work? And in fact, in spite of what some may believe, maybe the most important role of leadership in your organization. It's about alignment. It's about realizing if the escalator stopped, it's time we start walking and take it one step at a time and let's get to the next level. That's the work. And that's the job we begin. And see, the first thing you have to do, it's like my son's in the military. In fact, Saturday he'll leave for combat training again. He's actually going to Afghanistan with SEAL Team 4, which is an interesting assignment for an attorney. He's a JAG officer. But he's got to go out in combat training. And see, in the military, they have this, it's this cadence. It's ready, aim, fire. And too many times in public education, that's what we do. We see a problem. Ooh, I guess we're ready. Maybe we better aim. So what do? We form a committee. We develop a plan, We build consensus. And see, the problem is sometimes we go ready, aim. Oh, they're not all ready. Aim. Oh, we might need to aim. And then aim. And we never get to fire. And even when we get done aiming and we put it in a binder, where's the binder go? On the shelf. You see, a plan never changed anything. Action changed it. So what we have to do is this. What do we see? We do something about it then. Michael Fullen says we need to change that cadence. It needs to be ready, fire, aim. It's better to do the wrong thing than to do nothing. Those people sitting on that escalator got nowhere. Stand up and walk. But then ask yourself this. Once we did it, what did we get? And if it wasn't the outcome we needed, we take a look at it again. And now we go into this cycle of continuous self-reflection, self-improvement. It's that cycle of learning, cycle of inquiry. And we do it collectively and collaboratively. As a system, you, the leadership team, need to be doing it. But at your site, with your team, you need to constantly be engaged in this conversation as well. That's the work of leaders. So the other thing we need to do is understand that doing more isn't necessarily better. We need to ask ourselves, are there some things we do just because we've always done them? And if they're not helping us stay focused on the main thing, maybe we need to quit doing them and do the important things. Focus on student learning. Build the capacity. Build the systems. Keep the focus there. Narrow the playing field. And then just get after it. That's the work. Well, that's basically what we did. We began our work with a foundation that was pretty narrow in its focus. We started with a deliberate focus on high-quality initial instruction, EDI, explicit direct instruction. I know for some staffs, EDI is a profane utterance. But you know what? It's just good teaching. And if you don't know what it is, it's really modeled after Madeline Hunter's target teaching. And it is high-quality, effective initial instruction. It's a requisite for student learning. And so we've trained every one of our teachers in EDI. We trained every one of our administrators in EDI. We had every one of our administrators deliver a lesson in front of a group of kids using EDI. Why is that important? Because you see, the staff they lead needs to know they know as much about good teaching as I do. I have nothing against the head football coach becoming the high school principal. As long as he understands he's still a coach. It means he has to build capacity in the team to win the game. And so he has to become an instructional leader just like everyone else. We really developed a strong emphasis around our English language learners. And we really looked at the direct tie of initial instruction to support English language learners. But then we realized as well, I'm moving out of the camera range, we realized as well, if you look at the needs, children of poverty, English language learners, the contextual foundational needs, the gaps are the same, especially developing high quality access to academic vocabulary. You see, a deliberate emphasis on academic vocabulary daily with every child. That's necessary. Remember, only 1 in 4 of our kids come to us lacking the requisite language skills, but 3/4 of them come from poverty. And so the need is the same in terms of what we do to guide them to a point of learning and understanding. We've really looked at how do we become standards driven. You see, we had this belief that, well, they said there's standards in the book. If I'm going to deliver a year of standards-based education, it means I start page 1, day 1, I finish page last, day last. Somebody smarter than me wrote the book. If I get it done, that's it. You see, we were driven by covering content, not by, again, narrowing the field around defined essential learnings and then focusing on guaranteeing that every child masters those learnings and understanding that the text is simply a resource to support us, not the source of learning. We developed what we call our DPR, District Progress Assessment. I told you, we had no way of knowing if kids were learning. And that was, kind of scary for us. And we really needed to know, is learning happening? So we took a look at our essential standards, and then we developed an assessment tool. Now, it's a summative tool we use in a formative manner. We give it 3 times a year. We give it right after we open the doors. About 2 weeks into the school year, we give it the first time. What do we get? Baseline. We know where every child is as they start the journey this year. On this year's expected learning, we give it again right before winter break. What do we have now? Growth against baseline. We give it again 6 weeks outside of the state assessment window opening. What do we know? How far they've come and what they have left to master before the big game kicks off. You see, for us, having that information is essential. Not only do we give it, but we publish the results district-wide by grade level. 4th grade, we rank them. Highest percentage in of profession or advanced, Quail Lake. 2nd highest, Fairmont. 3rd highest, all the way down. We don't put the teacher name. But it doesn't take too long to understand, wait a minute, the 3 4th grade classes at Lincoln are in the bottom 10. That's probably us. And the 3 4th grade classes at Jefferson are in the top 10, and they look just like us. What do you think started happening? What in the world are you guys doing over there? You are kicking butt and taking names. Help us. And the phone started ringing, and the conversations about best practice and strategies began to develop on a broader context. Maybe the most important thing we did was the development of professional learning communities. As a district, I had the opportunity to hear Rick and Becky DeFore speak in the spring of 2005, May of 2005 in Riverside. And when I speak about professional learning communities, let me be crystal clear. I'm talking about professional learning communities at work model as written about by Rick and Becky DeFore, Bob Aker, Tom Maney. Those are the gurus of PLCs. If you haven't read their work, get the book, Learning by Doing, 2nd edition. Read it, start the journey. And you see, that's exactly what happened to us. I heard Rick and Becky talk about this work in May, and Rich Smith, remember my HR C&I guy? Well, we were down there together, along with a couple of principals. And for 2 days, we listened to them talk about the work of professional learning communities, and we realized this is it. This is exactly the structure we've been looking for to build our work around. It's a 5-hour drive home from Riverside, and we talked for 5 hours straight. Neither one of us had a voice left because we realized that's it. That's the work. And as superintendent, I had the ability in August, when our administrative team came together, and by the way, we don't need a room anywhere near this big. And I said, we are effective this minute a professional learning community district. I handed out Learning by Doing. I said, you have 2 weeks till your teachers come back, read the book, start the work, day 1. We're not gonna form a committee. We're not gonna do a study. We're not gonna build consensus. We're not gonna develop a plan. We are going to learn by doing. Start, day 1. And we did. Now, I knew I was taking every principal and some teacher leaders back down to Riverside in November, and I didn't think we could screw it up too bad in like 3 months. I was wrong in a couple of cases. But we fixed it. We learn by doing, because as I said, it's better to do the wrong thing than to do nothing. And today, we're a dramatically different district than we were at that point in time. The other thing we did was we developed common intent. You see, it doesn't matter where you go in our district. If you have a conversation with a staff member, you're going to hear the same voice. It'll look a little different, but everybody understands who we are and what we are about. They know what's important. We developed a response to intervention philosophy. You see, you have to understand, response to intervention is a general education obligation. It is not a special education initiative. It is the work we must, yeah, you better be clapping on that one. That's our work every day. It's what I do differently today because I know learning didn't occur in my classroom yesterday. That's the starting point. And then we build a system of support around kids. The ones that I just can't help by myself, we're going to work on together. And if you and I can't, then we're going to bring somebody else in as well. And we're going to continue to build those structures and supports. And by the way, it's not just the academic side, it's the behavioral side too. Because we've got to meet the social emotional needs of our kids. Every child has their story, and we've got to know the story, because sometimes that's what gets in the way of learning. And we've got to build those structures of support as well. But you see, we have to build capacity within ourselves, and we have to build a sense of collaboration, because RTI doesn't work if I'm the one doing it. It's all hands on deck. Everybody answers the bell. Everybody gets after it. We own the learning of every child. And that's how we must work. And then finally, it's leadership. We have invested dramatically. And ladies and gentlemen, Oakland Unified will only become who and what it can be if you stand up and lead. And you need to lead like never before. But you see, it doesn't mean I'm in charge. It means I am here and we together will get this done. We build a sense of community. We build a collaborative team. And we build capacity in one another to get it done. And the most important role of leadership I have found, and I believe this to the core of my being, is the teacher leader. Engaged in a conversation with their peers around the learning, the main thing that they are doing, the learning of their kids that they own together. And building the capacity of those teacher leaders is a critical role of site leadership and area leadership and district leadership. We are only as good as we together become. And that is a role you must embark upon. You've got to lead by building capacity in those you lead. Now, it's tough times, and the work is tough too. And I want you to think for a minute about what we've faced and see if this guy is doing something that feels a lot like public education. Okay, take a minute. At your table, turn to a friend and talk about how what that man just experienced parallels what we experience in public education every day. You got 2 minutes, go. Good. Who knows? Oh, you know what? All right. I would be willing to bet, and I heard some of these points, at every table in this room, some or all of these bullets were discussed. Because you see what just happened. That man was working in a mall that has been public education forever. He was working in isolation. He was out there, it's me, I'm doing it. He was working in difficult conditions, and he was doing the best job he could with the tools available. Now, I don't need to go on about that. This is California, the Titanic of school finance in America. I mean, we know what's been going on, and in spite of that, in classrooms around our district and in sites around this state, we keep focusing on the main thing. But you see, more importantly, he was working hard, but he was doing the wrong work. Now, some of you say, no, Mark, that was the right work. It was the wrong goal. Well, does it matter how hard you work if you're focused on the wrong goal? No, because you will never accomplish the goal. So if you're focused on the wrong goal, it's the wrong work. And that's the important thing. We need to ask ourselves, where is our focus? Remember that alignment? We got to be there. We have to take a look and make sure that everything we do is focused on the right thing. And as a professional learning community, some of you may ask, well, what is that? Milbury McLaughlin in 1995 said, it's the most promising strategy that exists to save public education. I don't know about you, but I think 1995 was a long time ago. And we're still talking about, okay, what's this professional learning community thing? And if you look at the number of researchers and associations that have endorsed professional learning communities as the model that we should restructure our schools into, the list is impressive. It's the who's who of education, leadership. What is a PLC? Well, you see, I've been in a lot of places where they say, oh, we do PLCs. Yeah, we do them on Tuesday. Well, PLC is not something you do. It's who you become. Hargraves defines it as an ethos, something that permeates your very being, and it defines you. And I have seen that. It has transformed our system. It has transformed who we are. Because we work together as a team, and we own the learning. And what do we focus on? Well, there's three big ideas. We focus on results, we focus on learning, and we work collaboratively. We build collaborative networks. That's the work. It's about us together. We work as teams. Now, tell me something. Think about this. What's a team? Think. Okay? I hear it. Here's the definition that I think someone in this room came up with. A team is a group of people who work together to achieve a common goal. Who had that as the definition? Don't you see? That's most of us. But you see, in a professional learning community environment, we go beyond that. A team is a group of people who work together interdependently to achieve a common goal while holding one another mutually accountable. You see, it's building an environment where our success depends on whether or not you and I together are bringing water. And by the way, if I'm not, you better sit me down and say, Mark, you're not carrying water. You need to bring it. We need more from you. And you see, when you build this sense of team, incredible things happen. As leaders, let me explain something to you. You want to transform your school district or your school site, then you pick those teacher leaders that you know get after it, and you make them your leadership team. You don't have an election. You select them at every grade level, and you build their capacity, and then you turn them loose to build the capacity of their team, and they will hold one another accountable, because when you put true believers in the conversation, incredible things happen. But you see, that's up to you. You've got to build those leadership environments and opportunities for the teachers that you serve alongside of. You got to believe in them, and you got to lead them, and you got to build a team. Well, what do the teams look like? It's real easy. It's a group of teachers that share a common responsibility for a common learning need. It's the 4th grade team. It's the 7th grade language arts team. It's the geometry team. And we come together and we have a conversation around answering 4 key questions. What do we want our students to learn? How do we know they've learned it? How do we respond when learning did not occur? And how do we respond when learning has already occurred? And you see, as we transition into Common Core, answering those 4 questions are incredibly important. And it is essential that we collaboratively and collectively seek the answers to those questions. It's not about, okay guys, we're doing Common Core, go sit down and get it done. But rather, we build deep levels of understanding, we build capacity, and we approach the task together. Well, what does this mean? How do we answer those questions? The first one, what do we want our students to learn? Essential standards. Now, see, the whole shift to Common Core, it's great because it is fewer, and that concept of fewer and deeper, it's wonderful, but there's still too many. So we're going to have to be very analytical about what are truly the essentials. Those identified essentials that we will guarantee that every student has the opportunity to develop deep levels of understanding around and high levels of proficiency, the guaranteed minimums. And then we build beyond that. But we must guarantee. What's that look like? Well, if you look at what the experts have said, it's generally 8 to 10, maybe 12 standards per semester. You're talking 20 to 24 in the course of a year. Really, that's not a whole lot. Really? You only have 36 weeks. How long does it take to teach a standard to high levels of proficiency? And by the way, how many requisite learnings do you have to bring back in? Because you always start instruction by going to a place they already know before you move to the place you need them to be. And so that defines the year. And how do we know what's essential? Well, Doug Reeves says there's 3 tests we need to use: endurance, leverage, and readiness. Is it something they need to know even after they take the test? Is it something that has cross-curricular applications? And is it something that's essential for every 4th grader to know to be successful in 5th grader? And when we look at the standards, we analyze them, and we answer those questions, it becomes clear. Now, I would suggest as well, if it's on the state test like 5 times, somebody probably thinks it's essential. But if you go back and you look at the blueprint, the assessment blueprint, and you analyze those standards that are the high-frequency standards, do they meet those tests? Every one of them. Every one of them. The other reason that we look at being crystal clear around the essentials that are in every classroom, guaranteed, we eliminate that random factor that has existed for so long that a child's success will depend upon which door they walk into at the start of the year. It's the guaranteed viable curriculum in every classroom. And it helps us close the gap between what we intended for our kids to learn and what they actually learned at the end of the year. What I meant to do and what I did. And you see, we have to create environments where that's the focus of the work. And we, on an ongoing basis, have conversations around where are we? How are we doing? How far have we gotten? Then second thing, we need to measure on a regular basis, did learning occur? And that's common formative assessments. Now, here's an example of what testing sometimes looks like.